This month didn't change everything, but it did change how buyers are behaving, and that distinction matters more than any headline or chart you're going to see. January wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, and it wasn't a market that rewarded speed. Instead, it was a month where buyers slowed down, paid closer attention, and became more deliberate about what they were willing to move forward on and what they want. That's an important shift because it tells us something fundamental. Buyers aren't walking away, they're not panicking, and they're not rushing. They're evaluating, they're comparing, they're waiting for clarity, not for deals. And that behavior explains almost everything we saw in the January numbers. So before we talk about sales, prices, or inventory, the big takeaway is this. January wasn't about fear, it was about patience. And markets like this don't reward people who react emotionally. They reward people who understand what's actually happening beneath the surface. If we're going to talk numbers, there's really only one that really matters this month, and that's the number of sales. In January, there were just over 3,000 resale transactions across the GTA, down roughly 19% compared to the same time last year. Now here's where a lot of people stop thinking. They see that number and they immediately assume demand has disappeared, that buyers have left, that confidence has collapsed, the market froze. But that's not what this stat is telling us at all. What it's actually telling us is that buyers slowed their decision-making process, not their interest. On the ground, what I'm seeing is this. Buyers are still touring homes, they're still watching listings, and they're still active. But they're no longer willing to compromise quickly. They're taking longer to decide, they're comparing more options, and they're far more comfortable saying, not this one, and waiting for the next opportunity. That shift alone can reduce sales numbers dramatically without eliminating demand. This isn't buyers leaving the market, it's buyers becoming disciplined. And that distinction is critical because disciplined buyers behave very differently than scared buyers. Scared buyers disappear, disciplined buyers stay, but they wait. This is where January really gets interesting because when you strip away the stats, what's changed most was buyer psychology. Buyers aren't saying no right now, they're saying not yet. They're hesitant about overpaying, they're cautious about homes that need work, and they're far less forgiving when something feels off, whether that's price, layout, condition, or location. What I'm seeing on the ground is that buyers are ranking homes, not reacting to them. They're asking me questions like, is this clearly better than the other options? Is this worth acting on now, or can we wait? What's the downside if we miss it? And when those answers are not obvious, they wait. At the same time, buyers are confident when value is clear. When a home is well positioned, priced correctly, and removes friction, buyers still act. Not emotionally, not impulsively, but decisively. That's the key difference right now. This is not a market driven by urgency, it's a market driven by clarity, and buyers are perfectly comfortable letting listings sit while they wait for the right one. This brings us to the sellers, because January made one thing very clear. Some homes are selling and others simply aren't. The difference has very little to do with luck. The homes that sold in January tended to share a few things in common. They were priced in line with reality, not hope. They were presented properly, and they made sense relative to the other options buyers were seeing. Meanwhile, the homes that struggled often underestimated one thing: choice. Active listings across the GTA are higher than last year, which means buyers have more options and more patience. That doesn't mean it's a buyer's market everywhere, but it does mean sellers are no longer being forgiven for being slightly off. A price that's 5% too high doesn't just work itself out anymore. It just causes buyers to move on. And once a listing gets mentally categorized as not worth it, it's very hard to undo that. This isn't about fear or blame. It's about understanding that the market is now separating sellers who are realistic from those who aren't. And January made that separation very obvious. Despite all the noise, there are a few things that didn't change at all. Well-located homes still attract attention. Turnkey properties still outperform, and homes that remove uncertainty sell faster than the rest. Longer-term fundamentals didn't break in January. Population growth didn't stop. Housing supply didn't suddenly catch up, and desirable neighborhoods didn't suddenly lose their appeal. What changed was the pace, not the direction. Markets like this tend to reward people who stay grounded, not reactive, and history shows that periods of hesitation often set the stage for more decisive markets later, once clarity returns. If there's one thing January reminds us of, it's this: markets don't reward people who rush, they reward people who understand. This is not a market for panic, and it's not a market for guesswork. This is a market for patience, preparation, and clear-eyed decision-making. Buyers who understand their position will find opportunity. Sellers who understand today's behavior will achieve strong results. And the people who struggle most are the ones trying to force yesterday's expectations onto today's reality. January didn't send a warning signal, it sent a message. Slow down, pay attention, and make decisions based on what the market is actually doing, not what you hope it's doing. If you want a more specific breakdown of how this applies to your situation, whether you're buying, selling, or just planning, that's always a conversation worth having. Feel free to check out the link in the description and book a 15-minute discovery call with me anytime. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.